traders, Tyler here from Vant Trading. I want to take this time to go over a trade I had today because I think it's a good example of how you can re-enter a trade and how you can change biases and how to do it the correct way. Now I'm going to be covering it on a pair GBP/JPY, but the same way of trading and the same way of changing biases and taking a second trade relates to stock trading. So what I'm about to show you will be the same exact way you do it for stocks, just on a stock. So here's GBP/JPY, and this right here is this morning, 11/23/2020 at 6:30 a.m. is usually when I trade, 5:30, 6:30. And this move right here is London session. When the London market was open, it had a nice little rally up, and then it topped off right here. Now, one thing I was looking at was, okay, it's either going to retrace and cover this entire London move and come back to where it originated, 138,200, or it's going to pivot and then continue higher, right? Because those are the two things that it'll do. So one thing I noticed was that it was actually creating lower highs here. And yes, it was flagging here, so I was like, all right, it's either going to create lower highs and continue down, or it's going to flag and then I'll buy on a break of here, of this level of resistance. So once I saw that this candle right here closed bearish right at this level, pushing lower, I took a sell entry, and basically what my sell entry looked like was this: stop above the previous candle's high, take profit where the origination was of the move from London session, and boom. But you got to make sure you manage your trade correctly, because as I was watching it, I noticed that there was a high level of exhaustion, high level of rejection right here on the downside, and the sellers failed to take over, and they were having a really tough time pushing it down. So it's okay to move your support and your resistance zones. It's okay to move it as you go along, as long as you have a good reason for it. Well, my reasoning here was that the sellers really struggled to move it. Now, yes, this was a good level as well, but this was even better level because there's a lot more level of exhaustion here, and the sellers couldn't take over. There's a lot of bodies here, candlestick bodies, that are small, meaning that it's tug of war. They're having a tough time going one way or the other. But now I'm seeing all this level of rejection here. I was like, all right, it's most likely going to pivot and then run for highs, because that's what the price action was telling me. So what I was saying was, if I can get a close above this level with some rejection and then a break above these highs here, I'm willing to take a low risk entry for a high reward play, right? So as I was trading, and as this is what, 6:30, as this 6:30 candle was closing, I was prepared to take a buy once it started breaking these highs here. Well, what it had done first, and this was actually a very ideal situation, was this candle right here started pushing down right away. It's pushing down, retesting this zone here, this exhaustion zone, and then it started pushing up and rejecting it. It started pushing up, and once I saw that it was rejecting it again, I knew that the sellers couldn't maintain control, and they were just going to get squeezed and exhausted. Well, as it started breaking these highs here, I took a buy entry, knowing that sellers couldn't take control. It was already on this nice move here from London, so there's already buyer's momentum in it. And heading into pre-New York, that's when another flush of volume comes in, so I knew that, well, people are going to see that it's flagging bullish. They're going to try to break it up higher. So what I did was I actually took a long position right here with a stop below the candle's low and a take profit right up here in this zone. And let me kind of tell you, my reasoning for that, right? So as I saw it closing, right here, I knew that we were going to be pretty strongly bullish, because then I moved it back up and I was like, all right, it closed back above this zone here. This move down here was just a kind of like a retest of the zone, a rejection of the zone. So what I was really looking at was, then I went to the higher time frame and saw that the hour, it was really just kind of like a little micro pullback for then it to go, because you got to make sure you're looking at all the time frames. And once I saw that, I was like, all right, my first take profit is going to be these highs, a run of these highs right here that is set from London session. And then once it hit that, I took half off. And then you go to your 1 hour time frame to see where a good zone is for take profit. And I noticed that this level right here was a high level of rejection previously on November 12th. So that was my second level of take profit, which is this zone right here. Right, so now as you can see, it really struggled breaking that zone. So that was obviously a very decent level of resistance, and that's where I closed my trade. So that was my trade on GBP/JPY. And let me kind of recap here. When you're changing biases, it's okay to change biases as long as you don't keep flip-flopping, right? So when I took this sell entry, you start realizing more price action as it starts evolving. And once you notice that, okay, there's a lot of exhaustion here, it's creating this level of support. And if you notice, it had a very large bullish run before your entry. Now the original entry I took to sell was a very it was more risky entry because I was counter trending the original momentum, but it was a trade I was willing to take. But once I noticed that it was creating this level of support and it was most likely going to continue its bullish run, I was willing to then flip my bias and then go long. Now you're going to have an original bias. My original bias was longs. Knowing that, I was willing to counter trend it because it had come so far and so overextended. You look at the RSI, it was so very overextended. I want to try to catch a little counter trend. Now I got a little pullback, but nothing to where I was looking for. So after you notice that you're really not getting that push, and if you take a look at the candlesticks, the bodies are getting smaller and smaller as they go along, knowing that you're getting a lot less volume on that push down. So knowing you have a lot less sellers volume and you're getting all the exhaustion wick on the downside, then you quickly change your bias, thinking, okay, this could be a long. It had previous buyers momentum. Let's see if we can get out of ourselves and take a long now. Now, one thing you got to keep in mind that now if you're switching biases and you're a long bias now and you're taking a long right here, you can't then switch to sell bias. You can't flip-flop and flip-flop. You can have an original bias and then you can switch to another bias. You can't keep going back and forth on the same stock and the same pair because then you'll start over trading and you'll get whipped around a lot. Now, my original bias, I took a sell, but now then I switched to long. If this candle if I had taken a long here, but then it started pushing down and closed bearish, I'm done trading. I can't then go bearish, bullish, bearish. I can't keep going back and forth because what could have happened was it could have closed bearish, but then it could have just been consolidating and then went right back up and closed bullish and continued up. You can't get chopped around like that. You really shouldn't change your biases more than once. And that's only in a scenario where it's an obvious level, it's obvious that you're in the wrong direction, which was this scenario because it's just price action was telling me otherwise, right? So I just want to kind of hop on and show you that, and just so you know how you switch biases, how you can trace a second trade, how you can take second chances in a trade, and really you can take a trade and then you can give it a second chance, but that second chance needs to be more of a confirmation. So you're not taking your first entry might be risky, but your second entry should really be a confirmation of, okay, this is a good trade. It's trending in my direction. I'm going to get in. Doesn't work. Then you're done, right? So that's how you change biases. That's how you take those kind of trades. And if you have any questions on that or want me to do any examples on how to do it for stocks, please let me know. I'd love to help out, and safe trading.